Hello, my name is Mark Plummer. Thank you for joining me in this video. Today's video will be the first of several on the colonization of America from Britain, as well as, down the road, the acts of Parliament and royalty that caused frustration, anger, and finally a cry for liberty from our forefathers. To me, it is so good to know what happened and what acts led up to the revolution of our country from England that would cause our forefathers to search and to want to build a country based on the freedoms and liberties that this country was founded on. So please sit back, enjoy this video. Leave any comments or suggestions you have, as I will be happy to go through them as I can. This video is on mercantilism. What is mercantilism and what role did it play in the colonization of America? Mercantilism was an economic theory practiced back in England as well as Europe in the 16th to the 18th century. Mercantilism holds to the belief that a country's power comes from its wealth, however mistakenly that wealth was finite. So countries back then was doing everything in their power to acquire more gold, generally at the expense of their rivals. This was done basically with a two-step process. First, by establishing colonies, and then having the colonies develop raw materials that the mother country did not have access to. And secondly, by creating a favorable balance of trade with rival countries through duties, taxation, and increased exports and decreased imports. England would eventually use this practice with the American colonies by having the colonies produce base items like cotton, but not allowing them to make their own fabric. England would then purchase the cotton off the colonies of America cheap and bring it to England, where they could make fabric with it, then sell the fabric back to the colonies for a profit, and to other countries like France, including England's gold reserve while decreasing France's. Sir Thomas Smith should have been properly given the title of first mercantilist author in England. It was believed that Sir Thomas Gresham wrote what became the first expression of Gresham's Law. It was thought the anonymous Memorandum for the Understanding of the Exchange, which had been submitted by Gresham in 1559 to Queen Elizabeth early in her reign, was his, but it was actually written by Thomas Smith in 1554, early in Queen Mary's reign. Queen Elizabeth, who reigned from 1558 to 1603, was in power during England's first push to a large-scale integrative approach to mercantilism. The era featured various efforts by her court to create a strong naval and merchant fleet capable of challenging the Spanish stranglehold on trade and increasing the growth of bullion at home. Compared to other European countries, England was relatively poor in the 1600s. Some of the challenges England was facing at the time was advancements in agriculture, which was requiring fewer farmers, as well as a doubling in the population from about 2 million in 1520 to 4 million in 1600. The loss of work for these people and the lack of new jobs was driving the poor to the larger cities like Bristol and London. The poor was becoming a bigger burden for the cities and were inconvenient and bothersome, especially for the wealthy residents of the city. Monasteries was originally there to help the poor, but in the 1530s, King Henry VIII dissolution of monasteries changed that. The purpose of it was to add to royal coffers as well as abolish opposition to royal supremacy. Starting in April of 1536, there was about 800 nunneries, monasteries, abbeys, and friaries that was home to about 10,000 monks, nuns, friars, and canons. But by April of 1540, only 4 years later, none of them were left. Most of the property was either bought by or granted to landowners. One of the early Britons who was advocating the colonization of America was Richard Hakluyt the Elder. Born in 1530 and son of Thomas Hakluyt, he was admitted to the Middle Temple, one of London's Inns of Courts, to study the law in 1555. Richard had a strong interest in geography, which aided in his desire to see the colonization of America from Britain. In 1557, he became overseer in the will of his uncle Richard Hakluyt. It is probable he became guardian of his cousins at this time, including his younger cousin, Richard Hakluyt the Younger, who was maybe 5 or 6 years old at the time. Richard the Elder practiced law and was elected to the Parliament to represent Leominster, a market town in the Herefordshire province. But he maintained the drive to see America colonized. Through his uncle's patronage and tutelage, Richard Hakluyt the Younger became interested in geography too, as was acknowledged in the Younger's writing of Principal Navigations, where he wrote his cousin the lawyer, Sir John Hawkins, and Sir Walter Raleigh as a source of his chiefest light regarding the Americas. In 1584, Hakluyt the Younger wrote a letter to the Queen entitled The Discourse of Western Planting, in which he put 21 points of importance for England to develop the American colonies with government funding. However, the Queen was not persuaded to fund Raleigh's enterprise. She did authorize the establishment of a colony on what is by this time called Virginia, on Roanoke Island in 1585. Then, in 1587, another voyage was sent to colonize Chesapeake Bay. Walter Raleigh was born in 1554. Walter was a poet, soldier, politician, a courtier, a spy, and an explorer. A cousin of Sir Richard Grenville and younger half-brother to Sir Humphrey Gilbert, he rose rapidly in the favor of Queen Elizabeth I. Queen Elizabeth granted Raleigh a royal charter authorizing him to explore, colonize, and rule any remote, barbarian, heathen lands, countries, or territories not possessed or occupied by Christians, for only 1/5 of all the gold and silver mined there. The hope was that the land that they were going to colonize would be as rich in raw materials as what the Spanish were finding in South America. The charter granted Raleigh in 1584 stated he had 7 years to establish this settlement or he would lose the right to do so. This is why mercantilism became so important, because what it meant was England was taking the opportunity to not only increase in raw materials that they did not have access to at that time, but the desire was also to see more wealth come in from the ground that they was colonizing. In my next video, we will go into the colonization of Roanoke Island, which was to become known as the Lost Colony. So please, pay attention and watch my video. Make sure you subscribe to my channel so you see when it comes out. If you like this video, please be sure to click like and share it so that others may find it, so that it will become more available. Thank you so much for your time, and you have a wonderful, wonderful day. Bye-bye.